afternoon and welcome to the Living Well radio program. You can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage, as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. You can also always catch us online at katb.org. Where else can they find us, Betty?
On Facebook.
On Facebook.
We now have a Facebook page, and we're trying to get to 150 likes.
That's right.
So go to Living Well.
Can we do it? We can totally do it.
Yes.
And so I think you just search on Facebook the @sign at Living Well Radio to be more specific. So find us on Facebook and like our page so we can get to Betty's goal of 150
likes.
150
go like
likes.
us. I think that's so funny to say. Will you go like me? Do you like us?
Today's
please
terms,
like me?
huh?
I know.
As well as unfriend.
Unfriend?
Right.
Don't unfriend us. Go like us.
So last week we had mentioned, we have, again, joining us today for part 2, we have Beau and Teresa. Did I say Teresa? It's a mixture of Teresa and Alaska. How's that? It's a new term for you,
Sounds
hashtag
like
or
a
something.
type of spice or something, like a seasoning.
A seasoning.
Throw some Teresa on that.
I am so glad we can just have fun here. Like, we have an edit button, but who cares, right?
right.
I mean, we'll just leave
We're
it.
just being transparent. Authentic, those words.
There's those words
You know how
love.
much I love those words.
You love them, Betty. Anyhow, we are joined again today by Teresa and Beau, both missionaries with the Alaska Dream Center, volunteering their time and talents and gifts just through the Lord's calling in that place. But last week we had mentioned that we had a surprise for everybody, and it was potentially Betty dancing, singing, or playing the ukulele. But all of those
Not
were
going to happen.
lies.
That's right.
We've got somebody a little bit more skilled to do that for us today.
Absolutely.
And so we are going to just start off with Beau sharing some music with her and a song. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Beau, to go ahead and get ready and share that with us.
Cool. And speaking of liking things, I do have a Facebook page for my music. So if you like what I'm about to play and you want to hear more of it, you can go on Facebook and find my music page. It's called Beau Haggerty Music. And I post videos every once in a while. I have an official music video actually on there so that you can hear.
Very cool.
So,
Excellent.
Yeah. So this song is called The Politician Came to Town, which is kind of, I didn't write it around the election time, but it's kind of fitting.
Kind of appropriate.
Yeah. It's
Very
fitting
appropriate.
So, yeah. All right. Pretty smiles, good handshakes, and words worthwhile, and he mesmerized the whole town. He campaigned, he gave his piece, he said his words, and he believed that everything he spoke was the truth. He was here for a short while, caught me in his winning smile, and now my heart is up for a vote. Oh, there he goes. To town. He stood up there, gave his speech, and we all listened to him preach, and I was hanging on his every word. He sang his anthem, sang it loud, trying to not look proud, and all were dazzled by what they heard. Oh, say, can you see I'm the only one you need? And for those bright stars, I will heal your every scar. Oh, there he goes, a face everyone knows, the star of his own show. The politician came to town. The politician came to town. The politician came to town.
Yay! Good job, Beau.
Thank you.
Good job.
Awesome. That is so cool. I love it.
Thank you.
kind of gets us going in the
That's
afternoon.
right. And now I need another cup of coffee to keep that up.
Can you share with the listeners why you wrote it?
I was going to ask that, Teresa. You just stole my job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, boys suck. I'm just kidding.
And that's our show.
Boys are very nice sometimes. This is one of those cliche, a boy was mean to me, so I wrote a song about it. But when I was in school, there was a boy that I was interested in, and he ended up being a very different person from who I thought he was, and said some very, very unkind things to me. But he was a government major and really wanted to go into politics and wanted to run for president one day and was serious about it. And so I was feeling down about it, and I wrote this song. And then it was actually kind of funny because I got to play a show at school, and he was there in the audience when I introduced.
What a great
this
way to
song.
get back.
So yeah,
Really?
Yes.
So how'd that go?
He left.
He did.
Yes.
So he didn't come to town.
No.
He was in town, but then he left.
Yeah.
Good job.
Great. Yes,
you.
Good
great
job.
job.
Yeah.
So we're back,
Yeah.
and we want to see if we can talk a little bit more about your story, about your life.
Yeah.
I think that we'll just let her go with it. Let her start.
Cool.
And as much as you're comfortable with, just share it with us.
Okay. Well, so as I mentioned the last time I spoke, I was raped when I was 16, and I blanketed that for a long time, and I didn't see it for what it was and didn't deal with my trauma from that. And right before I graduated high school, I talked to my parents about it, and all of that kind of came to the surface, and that was something that totally changed my life, and it changed my family's life too. It was really hard on all of us, and but I still was under the impression that I was okay, and that I didn't have trauma or baggage from it at all. And so I went to college and had a lot more trauma than I realized, and it had trauma has its way of permeating through everything, and it's very sneaky, and you don't always catch it. And so I don't think I realized how much there really was and how unhealthy of a person I really was. And so when I got to school, I was thinking I was fine, and then and I was in a relationship at the time that I was very serious about, and I was had the intention of marrying that person. And then my trauma actually kind of caused a lot of issues because I didn't know what a healthy relationship looked like. And so that relationship ended, and through the process of healing from that, my trauma all came to the surface very quickly. And so I was diagnosed with PTSD right as I started college, which was very difficult. And college was really hard when I was trying to process all of that, because you don't want to have to tell everyone that that's what you're going through. But when I was having panic attacks and nightmares, and I couldn't sleep. And so then when you can't come to class the next day because you were up all night hyperventilating with your roommate sitting there trying to help you calm down, and then your classmates or your professor just think you're just this person that just slacks off. And so it was hard, and it was not a good year. And so I struggled a lot with a lot of anger towards the Lord too, and just not understanding. And that's my story, but my family has just been through a lot, and my family members have their own stories of things that we've all had to go through, and that has affected all of us. So it's just been a really hard, probably last 4 years. And so I had this moment. There's this tree on campus, and I really like nature, and I was living in Phoenix, which is a city, so there's not much outdoorsy stuff there. And so there was one tree on campus that I would go climb and sit in when I just wanted to have alone time. And I was sitting in this tree, and I was just sobbing in this tree, and because I'm a big crybaby, so I cry all the time. But so I was sitting there, and I was just asking so many why questions. God, I don't understand why this happened to me. Why has my life turned out this way? And I just don't understand I'm one of those Christians that has to walk through the fire, not around it, and I just was asking him so many questions, and he just responded with such a simple answer that I couldn't even argue with it. He just said, because you're not one of those Christians that goes around it. And it was, it doesn't really answer my question. That doesn't answer why, but it was an answer. And in that moment, I kind of started to realize God's not necessarily meant to be understood, and I may not get the answers to all my questions, but despite all of that, God is still good. And something that helped me with that was I was reading the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, and when the king tells them that he will throw them in the furnace if they don't bow down, they tell him, we know that our God's going to save us, but if not, O king, like, our God is still good. And I think too many times we forget to think about the if not circumstances. If we believe that we aren't going to have to go through hardship, or we hope that we don't, but we don't really talk about what happens when we do. And I don't have the answer for why we go through hardship or why things happen. Bad people make bad decisions and do things, or not bad people, but wounded and deceived people make bad decisions that affect other people. And so, but it was so freeing to just let go and to stop trying to understand and just say, okay, you're good, even if I don't get it. And so since then, I've really just sought out a healthy lifestyle. And that was one of the reasons why I decided not to go back to school, because I felt like I had so much housekeeping to do with my own emotional well-being that I couldn't handle the workload of it. But it was hard because I burned a lot of bridges with people because people just didn't understand. And so I left feeling very defeated and very kind of like I had run away. And again, I just felt like everything got canceled. A relationship that I thought was going to end in a marriage ended. My college education ended. A lot of friendships ended because people just don't get it. And there's just been so much loss. And I went to the Azusa Street Revival Conference that Louis Engle did in LA with my family. And I just felt like God completely broke that feeling of defeat off of me, and just told me he wasn't going to leave a single detail untouched, and I was just going to be completely restored, and not to underestimate him. And after that, I slept a full night for the first time in months, and I had been sleeping regularly after that, and I stopped having as many panic attacks. They still come and go, but it's been like a radical transformation, and I just felt so much peace about it. And that trip, my family really rallied together, and my family's been so supportive of me in my recovery. And so I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life or what was going to happen. And I knew that God was going to turn that around and use that some way, but I had no idea how that was going to happen, or couldn't really see it. And I just kept trying to make plans, and I just felt like God just kept saying, no more plans. And then, like I said, I wasn't exactly enthusiastic about moving back to Alaska. I'm not a fan of cold weather, but I really, my parents were moving back, and my mom just said, I feel like God really wants you to come. And so I started praying about it. And so she kind of had to drag me here, but she got me here. And so my family was staying at the Willow Center, and I was still really struggling with unforgiveness towards the person that did that to me, because that's such a hard thing to, the thought of forgiving that is such a hard hurdle to jump. And so my parents were in town, and I was staying out at the Willow Center by myself that day, and it was kind of one of those things where I knew I needed to deal with it, but it was just like, God, how about we just not talk about that today? We'll just put that in the corner. And but it just kept coming up, and so I was sitting there in room 10 at the Willow Center, and I was sitting there with my dog, and I was just having my Jesus time, just kind of ignoring this thing that I knew I needed to deal with. And this worship song came on called Brother. It's by a band called The Brilliance, which is a really good worship band. But they have this song called Brother, and it's a song about forgiveness, and there's a line in there that says, forgiveness is the garment of our courage. And I've worked so hard to overcome fear and to feel like a brave person. And so like courage and bravery has kind of been a theme for me, because my safety was taken from me, and so I felt afraid of so many things for so long. And so when I heard that, I sat there and I realized, if I can forgive the man that raped me, I can do anything. That's just about the bravest thing I could do. And so sitting there at the Dream Center, I chose to walk in forgiveness, and I felt more empowered and more brave from that moment than I probably ever felt. And Charisse Heislip totally just took me under her wing and just ministered to me. And what I loved about what Charisse did was she had no expectation of me. She wasn't waiting for me to, what can I bring to her ministry? She just wanted to be my friend and just love on me. And I needed that. And I will forever be so grateful for that. And she just ministered to me and just made a place for me there. And so now, it's crazy thinking about where I was 6 months ago sitting in a tree, crying and not understanding anything. And now here I am in Alaska, where I never thought I'd be, back in the ministry at a center where women are going to need to hear that story and hear those things. And they need someone to talk about the if not circumstances, if not, God is still good. And the decisions of other people don't change the nature of God. And that's what's really something that I've learned and has been really key in my healing. It's just that the nature of God doesn't change no matter what happens in my life, and he still loves me. And just the fact that I'm here and I made it out of that situation alive, honestly, is a miracle. The enemy has tried really hard to take me out. And so that just in and of itself, I just get so grateful. And that's kind of where I am now. When I start to feel angry or I start to feel like my joy is being stolen, I just remember, like, Jesus dying on the cross is kind of overused. We talk about it so much. And Jesus loves you is something people hear all the time, so it doesn't really mean anything to a lot of people anymore, but it means so much. And it's such a personal thing. Like, we talk about it, Jesus died for everyone, but Jesus died for me. And when I think about that too, he knew that my life was going to be in this shameful state, even if it wasn't my fault. I was a shameful person that had a bunch of sexual impurity in my life, and he knew I was going to be that way. He knew that was going to happen. He knew that I was going to be angry at him. He knew that I was going to sit in a tree and yell at him and ask him why. And he still got up there and he did that for me. And I can't ever say that without such a gratefulness and such a weight that it's just not a statement to me anymore. If Jesus loves you, no, it's Jesus loves me. And I didn't do a single thing to deserve it. And so that's something that I really just want to convey to the women that we have at the center. He knew all of these things, and he still did that for you. And it's been such a crazy journey of healing. But I'm so excited for the doors that God has opened for my story to help other people, and even just the healing that I'm still feeling at the center. And when you have PTSD, your feeling of safety is something that is hard to get. And so living out in the center, I feel like God totally tucked me away, because we're very isolated. We're off the grid. We're not around a lot of people, and I feel so safe out there because I feel like God just tucked me away in this mountain pass where I can do his work and I can minister, but there's always people there, and security is a big priority just for the ministry that we do, and so it's a very safe environment. And so that just, the practical side of that has been such a blessing, and so it's just cool to see how God kind of ties things together.
Can I make a quick suggestion, Beau?
Yeah.
Consider writing a song called Tucked Away.
Yeah.
You referenced that
That's
several
good.
times. I don't know, just sharing that with you.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful story. And I love the pictures that come with some of the phrases that you use and how God's just given these pictures to you. But I love that term, how he's just done that for you where you're at right now. And I want to remind our listening audience too, Betty, this young lady is 20 years old.
Just turned 20.
Just turned 20 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, the wisdom
Yes.
that is coming from you is just nothing short of astounding from a 20-year-old. That gives those of us that work with young teen girls just such a sense of hope to know it's not about you guys living, or any of us living a perfect life, but how God would grow you and nurture you through those experiences, and how you can give him the glory through that is just
Thank you.
amazing.
I love the phrase she uses, if not.
Yes.
If not, if God does not do this, does that change his character? does that change who he is? And it does not.
Yeah. Well, that is just so packed with so much, because you're couldn't be more correct in that we all want to say, oh, some miracle happens or something good happens, and we all say, oh, it's because God is good. What would happen if we could start to transform the way that we think when things go differently, as you've shared, that we would still say that God is good?
When you think about that story too, if Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had, out of fear, decided to go ahead and bow, the miracle of Jesus being in the furnace with them would have never happened. And the miracle of Jesus being in the furnace with them, because they were willing to put their life on the line and say, okay, God, we think you're going to save us, but if you don't, you're still good. And the king got saved, an entire kingdom was saved through that. And that's where learning to trust his character instead of trusting the circumstances that we're in is so much. I think that's so much stronger faith, and that's really where faith comes in. We can trust that that life is going to go the way we want it to, but we have faith that God's still going to take care of us even if it doesn't. So
I want to ask you a question about your story. You had mentioned a few times that when I started calling it what it was, you said that a few different times.
Yeah.
Did you go through a time where you were justifying it differently, or tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, and this is something that's pretty much, I don't know of any other sexual abuse victims that don't do this, but I think the biggest problem is feeling shame. And so you justify it in your head in that it was your fault, or that you asked for it, or all these other reasons that you can come up with. And so when I told my parents, even 2 years later, being 18, when I told, and the person that did this to me was an adult when I was very young. And looking back now, I was so young. And at the time, I just thought it was, I was just this slutty girl that just slept with this man.
Would you mind sharing how old you were?
I was 16 when it happened. So it was right before my sophomore year of high school. And it was someone that my parents had opened their home to minister to them because they were having a hard time in life, and they turned out to be a sexual predator. And so for about a year of my life, I went through that.
And you didn't tell your parents?
No, because I was totally convinced it was my fault. And that's what manipulative sexual predators do. They make you think it's your fault. And so I then I fell in love with my best friend after that year. And so when I started to see what a normal relationship looked like, and that wasn't it, I ended that. But the fact that I made it out of that without, usually sexual predators, when they start to feel like they're losing their victim, they get very violent. And I mean, more violent than they already are. And so that's where the miracle of me being here is from. I kind of got myself out of that. He still lived in our home for 2 years, so it wasn't exactly over, because he didn't stop trying. And so then when I told my parents about it, my mom asked me, would you call that rape? And I said no, because I was so convinced that it was my fault. And I struggled I felt so ashamed, and that's why I didn't tell my parents. I didn't want to be, my parents are pastors of a church. I didn't want to be that stereotypical pastor's kid that, made bad decisions or whatever. And but then the more I started to tell them things, and when I started going to counseling, to speak it out loud, hearing it come out of my own mouth, and being older and looking back at how young I was when it happened, I just started to see it for what it was, really. And and my counselors were like, you're the victim in this situation. Like, I had to have a lot of counseling done to undo that shame and that manipulation that had been done to me, to make me think that, and the stronghold that I had in my life to think that it was my fault, and to really understand it. And I think just understanding what rape really is, and now my opinions of it are so strong. No person should have to go through any interaction whatsoever that they don't want to. That's a conversation, a physical act, whatever. And so when I learned that, and I started reading things, because especially when I was diagnosed with PTSD, I started reading things about PTSD for sexual abuse victims, and just reading that so many people don't even see that it was abuse until years later. And so it was a process to get there. And so there was a lot of shame that had to be undone.
Beau, if I go somewhere that you're uncomfortable with, please don't feel pressure to answer, okay?
Yeah.
But would you be willing to share what you were feeling, what you were thinking that first time something took place that you knew it just wasn't right?
I think because the way that it was presented was this person was my boyfriend, or that's how it was presented to me, and so I think I just remember just feeling like it was, I'm not a virgin anymore. I just gave that up. I gave up that one thing that we worked so hard to keep, and all Christian girls are told, don't lose that. And I just felt like I just had failed. And so usually it was, something would happen, and then I'd say I don't want that to happen again, and then it kept happening over and over again. I just gave up.
Yeah.
Because it was just, I can't be a good person.
Teresa, can I turn to you for just a moment? Because
Sure.
I know that you have just a lot of years of faithfulness in serving and working with teen girls. While I give Beau some time here, how does her story compare to, or compare is not the right word, but working with teen girls, have you seen a similar story kind of play out where they take ownership of the activities that have happened, and kind of how do you guide them through that process?
Actually, what Beau shared is classic, and that's one of the generally it's hard to describe the feelings because there's just a numbness that happens. The first time it happens, something inside goes numb, and or another word is dead, and like she said, always people think it's my fault. And there's so much manipulation and shame, and the secrecy is what keeps it going. And that's almost always a part of it. And in our family, they have open communication, but that it was secret for that long just shows the power of that a sexual predator has over their victim.
There's also, when you go into a victim's right office and you meet with someone from a legal aspect of being sexually abused, they'll show you there's a process that sexual predators go through called grooming. So there's an entire process of manipulation that happens before anything physical happens. So they've already got your mind kind of under them before they even try. And so there's a whole level, like they'll show you a list of steps of things that they'll do to manipulate you, to isolate you from your family, to isolate you from other people. And so it goes way beyond just the physical stuff too. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Teresa.
I think that the biggest damage of sexual abuse, and which would be true in Beau's story, but she experienced enough of healthy relationship in her family that it helped her recover from it fairly quickly. But the biggest damage of sexual abuse happens because you're violated like our sexuality is so core to our identity and who we are, and you're violated in that core place. But it's also in the context of relationship, and it feels good. Like your body's made to respond. And so that mix of the positive and the negative, the mix of the horror and the feel good is what just, like, that's the piece that causes almost like the insaneness of it. And then what happens is it laminates all the wrong things. And it laminates love to sexuality. It just laminates all the wrong things in those moments. And it's the message of hope is that God can redeem all of that. But you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah. You sang a song earlier, Beau. Do you think you have it in you to sing the other one that you would like to, that you had mentioned? Is it A Farmer's Daughter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
Go ahead and get ready for that. I appreciate you ladies coming back again today. This has just been such a blessing for you to share your story, Beau, and I know that it falls on ears of many who can probably relate and are just so encouraged by your willingness to share. Betty, you have something you want to add?
I know that both of these ladies have stories to share, and I want to put a plug out that if there's anyone listening that would like to invite them to speak to their youth group or their women's group, how could they get in touch with you?
Well, you're
Could they go on your Facebook page
Yeah, I
and
was going to
message?
say you're welcome to find me on Facebook. My name is Beau Haggerty. My first name is spelled Beau.
Or you know what? Actually, they could send us a message on Living Well,
Yeah, that too.
and we could get in contact
Very
with you.
good.
Yeah. So, but I would love that for sure.
And Betty, I don't know. There might be a part 3 because there's a story from Teresa
Yes.
we haven't heard yet.
Mhm.
So even if it's just a shorter segment to get that story, maybe we
Yeah.
can still do that. So,
Because Teresa has a great story too.
yes, yes. Okay, go ahead, Beau. Thank you.
Yeah. Have you heard of the farmer's daughter and her garden she loved to grow? Have you heard of the farmer's daughter, how she lost all her flowers to a crow? Well, the tale of the farmer's daughter, her sunflowers touched the sky, and a crow came down to join her, but she didn't see the mischief in his eyes. When the crow saw his chance, he trampled them all down. They lay there in their graves when she came back from town. It broke her heart to see how she held dear. She gave a cry that everyone could hear. Won't you fly, fly away from me? Yours is a face I don't want to see. Won't you fly, fly and don't come near? Yours is a song I don't want to hear. Have you heard of the farmer's daughter and her fury that hell couldn't claim? Have you heard of the farmer's daughter? You'll feel her scorn when she calls that bird by name. When the spring came back around, the crow just wasn't done. He waited till the garden said goodnight to the sun. The sky wept in the morning at the flowers fall. Listen well, and you will hear her call. Won't you fly, fly away from me? Yours is a face I don't want to see. Won't you fly, fly and don't come near? Yours is a song I don't want to hear. Have you heard of the farmer's daughter? Neath the stars you'll hear her mournful words. She's there weeping for what she thought would be. Her heart's made sick by hope deferred. Won't you fly, fly away from me? Yours is a face I don't want to see. Won't you fly, fly and don't come near? Yours is a song I don't want to hear. Yours is a song I don't want to hear.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Beau, can I ask you one question?
Yes.
Has songwriting been healing for you?
Yes, it has. Actually, art, just in general, I've done theater for a long time and dance and singing, but music has been a really good outlet to take things that you're feeling that are, and usually you feel more negative feelings strongly, and so to take those and to turn them into something beautiful through writing has been a really cool process. But that's something that I'm actually going to be teaching the women at the center to kind of share that form of therapy with them. So
Thank you, girls.
thank you
Yes.
so much.
What a blessing it was to be here on Living Well today.
Absolutely.
Betty, I know we're out of time, way out of time, but I want to say to you that I want to thank you for just following God's direction with your ministry of Alaska Christian Women's Ministry and this radio program of Living Well. To me, it's just so humbling to sit here in the studio and have such a pleasure to interview women like this that you just feel led to bring in, and we get to hear their stories.
You know, God has been so good to allow me to meet women, to bring them into my life, and these girls are going to be spending the weekend with me
Really?
because they're attending the training for priceless.
Awesome.
Mentoring training.
Very good. That is great. Well, thanks again, ladies, so much
Thank
for joining
you.
us. And that is another Living Well radio program, and you can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage, as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. You can also catch us online at katb.org.